office.
That's all right. We're just concluding. You didn't miss much.
Okay, we're recording. You can go ahead.
Are you guys still there?
We are, but I don't see Bob. Did he click a button?
I just see the town of North Stonington little seal.
Yeah,
On
that's me in my office. Let me pop across the hall. Hold on.
Okay.
And we're back.
Okay. We're back.
All righty.
I guess when I said, Nicole, we're done, I guess I meant it. Anyway, so we're gonna call this meeting to order. Today is the 16th of May. Looks like it's about 10:06. The special Board of Selectmen meeting to discuss the Newer Farm in the 1750 house known as the John Dean Gallup House. President of this meeting and myself, Bob Carlson, the first selectman, Brett Mastriani, selectman, and Nicole Porter, selectwoman. And the first order of business is to just, I guess, to speak about this house. Anyone, any public comment prior to that? If there's any public comment, please unmute yourself. Christine, are you handling that part of it?
Yeah, I don't see any hands. I don't see anybody who's unmuted themselves. So I think you're okay to move.
Okay, great. So I think that's the only thing on our agenda today. So I'd ask either of the selectmen to start and see if to make comment on the or would they like to make it? Actually, there's no motion needed now because we're just discussing. We already know we're going to rent it. It's a matter of who we're going to rent it to. So please start the discussion, either selectman.
Nicole, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll start. So, you know, I've gone round and round about this house, and I think, you know, yesterday at the farmer's market, first ever, just like blew it out of the water, could not believe the success. And just at some point, you know, throughout the morning, when I wasn't causing a big backup of cars on Route 2, you know, I'm just kind of looking around at that field and the house, and I'm just, you know, people were just milling about. It just, I mean, it was phenomenal. It was exactly, you know, what I want. And I've made it very kind of clear, I think, in past meetings, that my ideal situation would be able to save the house for the town. So, you know, so yesterday, really, for me, I know we need to rent it. I think that I wanted to just pose a proposition or ask a question of the board. And is there a way right now, right? So we have $20,000 that has been put in the budget for a rental for that property as revenue, correct?
Actually, Nicole, we put in 14.4 because originally we thought about renting it at $1,200 per month. Then it could moved up to $1,600, which then brought it to $19,200. One thing to consider besides the revenue part is the expense part. There's also the town pays for oil and utilities. So during the winter months, we have to keep the burner going because we don't want the pipes to freeze. So there is that. So I'd say it's, if you want to round the 19 up to 20,000 for revenue, that's fine, but then you have to consider the other 3 to 4,000 a year for utilities and expenses.
All right. So is there a way, would we entertain the idea of putting off renting it for 6 months and allow Milltown Arts to put something together that might be able to pay for the upkeep of it?
Okay, I'll give you my opinion, unless you, Brett, you want to say something first.
No, I'll
Okay.
listen to your.
So here's what my thought is, Nicole. Couple things. One is the townspeople, the taxpayers in town have been promised some things over the last few years, i.e. the one-story wing being demolished and still standing. And I think that as town leaders, we have to stick with what we've told the town is going to happen. And we've been telling the town now for a number of years that that house has been vacant and it has not seen any revenue for 3 years, and we would remedy that. Also, as leaders, we should always be looking at ways to increase revenue at the same time to look at it on the expense side. I think that's our job to do that. I love the idea of the combination of the farmers market, music events, using that building for art and so on. But I think it's a great idea, but I don't think that, it's just again my opinion, I don't think the timing's right. I think that we also know that it's going to need a new roof sometime, probably in the next 2 or 3 years. It's probably going to need some new clapboard and some trim sometime in the next 2 or 3 years. And by bringing in an extra $20,000 a year, as well as saving $3,000 to $4,000 on expenses, that money can be put into an account to then to get those things done. After this budget, if it passes, we'll have about 55,000 in there that we know the repairs. That'll cover what we think is going to have to happen now with windows and whether the art people, I know the art people say, well, you don't have to put new windows in if we're there. Well, that's not true. You know, the windows are all sealed, they're painted shut. There's a lot of energy that goes out the door. So when we do have oil on in the winter months, we do lose heat there. So I'm thinking that having that extra $20,000 to come in over a 2 or 3 year period, put that into the bucket to use it for future renovations, I think is a good thing. Now it's not coming out of the taxpayer dollars. So just again, my opinion, one vote is that we should do what we told the town we were going to do in renting out and not put on the brakes. They're also promised speed humps in the village 2 years ago. That never came to fruition. I think we should be a board that acts on what we say is going to happen. That's all. It's again.
Yeah, no, and I don't disagree with you at all. And I think that's why I'm so torn. I mean, the last thing that I want to do is go back and say, nope, we've changed our mind. We want to keep it for the town. We're not going to rent it, especially after we've already gone out for and asked for applicants to rent it. So is there a way? So my other thoughts are, I do not want to go into a rental agreement with anybody with the understanding that that person could be in there for anything more than a year. So I mean, obviously rental agreements are in 1 year increments. Usually that has been my experience. I know you can certainly do something different. But I think I'm concerned about tying our hands up with that building for multiple years when we could potentially be using it in the future as a great kind of cultural center. So would we entertain at least making it known to whoever ends up renting it that we very well may need to ask, or we very well may want to ask to have them leave the house after a year if once that rental agreement was up? Is that something we would entertain?
I thought we talked about that at a board of select meeting, that there'd be 1 year lease agreements with the idea that we renew those each year if everything was working out fine for both the tenant
Okay.
for the town. So I thought that's what we're doing anyway. We weren't gonna get into a multi-year lease agreement. And that way too, if at the end of a year, you look at where we are, but of course, if you do have someone leasing it, you have to give them notice. I mean, we say everything works on a year, but you have to give them adequate notice. You just can't expect someone to just pick up and leave.
Oh,
And
yeah, no,
so-
no, I know that.
So at the end of each year, we could look at seeing where the town is, where Milltown Arts are, if that's the direction the town still wants to go, or we might find that it's working best with the tenant being there and everything's working smoothly. So I think one thing not to be confused on is, so yes, the farmer's market happened across the street from the house. And the farmer's market was great. And it was a lot of activity. It was lively, colorful. Everyone seemed to get along. And I think that's all great for you at farm. But that really has nothing to do with the house. It's two totally different things. They just happened to be next to each other yesterday, and which makes it look like it was a tremendous thing. I don't know if you ever went to Fenway Park and they have all this going on outside the park before the game starts. And it's all great stuff and they're selling stuff and it's great. And then you get in the park and the Red Sox lose 10-0. Well, one had nothing to do with the other one. So it's the same thing, that the house is sitting there empty. Across the street was a great event, but one has nothing to do with the other one as far as specifically anything to do with the other one. Yes, as the park as a whole, it did. And the vision for that house is part of the overall vision possibly, but as of what happened yesterday, it really didn't have anything to do with the house as of right now. That's my opinion.
I have to say, I agree with Nicole on a lot of things you said. I wish there was a way for us to, utilize that for the town, whether it was Milltown Arts itself or some other or multiple groups or whatever. I do think the timing is rough. We did put it in the budget. We said we were renting it out. And I know, Bob, you mentioned that we say things and we want to stick to them, and we definitely do. But like I said, I haven't heard a lot of pushback about saying to rent it other than a few people, but it's never been, from what I see online or at our meetings, it's not a big topic of discussion where people are saying, hey, why isn't this rented yet? Why aren't we getting the income from it? But I do think that the timing's rough. I think we did ask for applicants. I disagree with your Fenway Park statement. Well, I'm at the event, and yes, they're two separate properties technically. Depending on who you have in there could really also change the whole feel of that, depending on what the yard is, how there's different groups over there. It could change that feel because it is right there. I do like Nicole's thinking of, okay, we have that year lease, we reassess it at the end of the year and see if we made the right choice. We'll still be here then, right? So
For at least one more year.
I think we'll still be here in this role then, and we can address it then. But I do agree with Nicole. I personally feel that money, other than the maintenance and the utility side, that 16,000 or whatever we put in the budget, or now that it'd be 20, there are a lot of pros to the community versus that dollar amount. I think we've seen it. I think we saw it yesterday. I mean, numerous people came up mentioning it was their first time there. They never knew about Hewitt. Some people didn't even know the town owned it. So I think there is potential there. But it's hard to make that choice now that we've already decided to rent it.
Yeah.
So we have 4 applicants, and one of the applicants is the Milltown Arts, correct? We have 4 applications
Correct.
come in. I think that no matter who we rent it to, we have to, the farmer's market will have to realize that is private property once it's rented. So when we have the farmer's market in June or July, whenever we have someone living there, that property is going to be off limits. We also should talk to the tenant, whoever we decide on, and say, hey, just so you know, this is what happened on May 15th, and it's going to happen again in June, July, and August. we'd rather have you work with us than against us. We would hate to get someone in there that all of a sudden puts all these keep off private property signs. We will, as a town, put private property signs out saying, please respect private property. But it will, you would just hope we can have a working relationship with whoever the tenant is, say, this is gonna happen. You live in a park. This is gonna happen occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you hope to get a tenant that's gonna be able to work with the town, right? So that's my thought on that. But we have 4 applicants. I think we should start discussing, because we didn't make up our mind at the last meeting, where we want to go with applicants. And I think the best thing to do is to make a motion to, on any particular applicant, have someone second that motion and then discuss it and then bring it to a vote and pass. And then the first time we get to an applicant that passes, it's over. So I think that's the best way to do it.
And if that's how you want to do it, I make a motion that we go along with the subcommittee's recommendation to lease the property for 1 year lease to Marilyn McKay.
Okay, do I hear a second on that? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on. Do I hear another motion?
So can I make a comment before I make a motion?
Sure.
So I think that despite what I think all 3 of us feel in our hearts as far as what our vision for the whole house and the property is, having unfortunately, or not unfortunately, listened to Laura make her pitch at the last Selectmen meeting for Milltown Arts, I do feel that unfortunately, because there's no intent right now to be able to contribute any money officially. There's no commitment to be able to contribute any money right now. That as much as I think we all would love that option, I think that that's for right now. And Bob, I completely agree with you. And Brett, you said it too. We've been discussing this. We've been talking about rental. We've been talking about the money that's already been put in the budget. I think that we need to follow through, and 1 year will go by fast and we'll be in another position. So, but before I make a motion, I want to explain my motion. So I'm going to make a motion that we rent the property to the Coast Guard Academy, gentlemen. And here's my reasoning before somebody seconds it. I think, and this is so hard, right? Because Marilyn is a longstanding great member of the North Stonington community. I've made it clear in the past with my comments that I am really concerned about animals on the property. That for me is kind of my only sticking point, so it is absolutely no disrespect to Marilyn. So what I would like to ask before I make the official motion is, do we know and have we had conversations with the Coast Guard Academy gentlemen about pets? Do we have any confirmation about that?
I have not had any, and there was no mention on the application as far as I know.
And when his family members, or I think they were actually friends, toured the property, they didn't mention any of it. But I will say that it is in the lease that it allows it.
I know.
So there's nothing from potentially getting him, preventing him from doing it in the future.
I know.
Yeah, so before you make your motion, I wish someone seconded mine so we could have discussed it a little more, because it was the recommendation of a subcommittee. And then what's the point of having subcommittees if you don't even discuss their recommendation? So there's 2 other members that aren't here that may help make that recommendation. I just want to say, Nicole, before you make that motion, everything that we just talked about that property and the benefit to the town with that property, especially during the farmer's market or any other events, I think having someone from out of town that hasn't even seen the property or been in North Stonington, to look at it that way, I think we're putting some of those things and the benefits that you perceived renting it to Milltown and Bob perceived as benefits of the community, we risk that. I've seen what Marilyn has done in the past. The amount of energy she's put into our community and how she's always been willing to work with, doesn't matter party, it doesn't matter party affiliation, it doesn't matter different committees. She's always been open to helping those groups out, whether it's the business association that she initially started in town to help our businesses, her years of service on EDC. I feel like if we were looking for someone to fill a period of time to eventually make this something greater down the road for the community, I don't think anyone would partner with some of the groups that are doing things at Hewitt. And I can't speak for her. I can only speak from my knowledge of her in the past, that she wouldn't be that person to say, yes, you guys can park over here while you're doing the event. I'm not saying all the guests, but like the event staff that we're helping or any of those. I worry that when we rent it to someone that we have no history with, they could leave at any time being a member of the Coast Guard. If they get transferred out, this came up at our subcommittee meeting, we have to automatically let them out of that lease with no penalties because it's a government thing.
And Brett, not to interrupt, but that's actually one of the reasons why I think that he would be a better. So I think for me, one of the concerns that I have is that poor Marilyn's going to get settled in there. And then we're going to be in a position to have that entire property come back to the town. And that's going to be really disruptive versus this gentleman who we know is a short time person and would be very used to picking up and leaving at the end of a year. And I think that he's got a 3-year commitment in the area, but it would be nothing for him to pick up in a year if we decided to say we want it turned back over to the town. Whereas that would potentially be very disruptive to somebody who has built her life in North Stonington. So that actually for me, because I had different thinking, was working in his favor, especially in light of the fact that we were, what our ideal vision for the property would be.
Right, but I think he was looking to potentially have it for those 3 years.
Yep, no, I understand.
And like I said, I just go back to the fact that when we do have events there or we use it as a community space, I feel like we would get more benefit out of you having someone there that's been committed to our town and knows our town. But I just wanted to say that before you make your motion. I mean, there's no guarantee they might not change his direction before he has to come in 3 months. I think it was July, right, for him?
July 1st.
July 1st. I just think we have all volunteered in town. We've all put our time in. And I do think that should matter to some. That should make a difference of what someone has given to this community over the years.
Okay, so let me weigh in, because I understand both your points. I think we all respect Marilyn quite a bit. I don't know as well as you do, Brett, but I know what she's done. When we first came in, I think she was the first type of newsletter that I remember reading. I also know she's a doer. I think in fairness, which Nicole said, is Marilyn's talked to us on more than one occasion about she doesn't want this to be a 1-year stint. She wants to be there. She's going to do work and set the house up the way she likes it. And as you said, a year goes by very quickly. it's not fair to Marilyn that at the end of a year, we say to her, well, now we have a better option. We're gonna bring Milltown Arts in there and out you go. She's not someone that wants that. I know even on her application, she was looking for a 5-year agreement, which I don't think the town is in a position to do, but I think in her case, even if we went year by year, if there was no Milltown Arts and she was a resident that was living there, the tenant, I could see us renewing year after year, because I think she would be a very good tenant. I think the gentleman from the Coast Guard Academy, he's probably moving very lightly. He doesn't have a house that he's packed up. He's not renting pods. He's, as Nicole said, he's an easier in and out of that if it happens to be. Plus, he's getting a stipend from the U.S. Naval, or Coast Guard rather, that's paying his rent. So then with the stipend he's getting is more than enough to pay the rent and the utilities each month. So if he had to move, he still has that money coming in every month to go somewhere else and find another place. So I understand everything that you said, Brett, and there's not been a motion yet for anyone else, but I just think it's a disservice to Marilyn after all she's done to say to her a year later, or have the town be in this position to have to say that I don't want to have that discussion a year from now and say, Marilyn, by the way, Milltown's informed us they have plenty of money, they're gonna move forward, and could you find another place to live? As far as the dog goes, I have to agree with Nicole on that. There's nothing in the agreement that says you can't have a pet. You can have one pet per the subcommittee that came up with that. But we're a little nervous about this history of this particular pet, because we know that the animal control officers picked this pet up on multiple occasions, because it's not, there's a state law that says that you either have to be on a leash or you have to be within short distance of the owner, and if the owner calls, you have to be able to come. So yeah, think of this pet roaming through 100+ acres of property in the town is not something I would find desirable. So
So then I would say with that, if that's the holdup for, that was one of the bigger holdups for Nicole and potentially for anyone, then we strike that from the lease before we move forward.
I think
And we can do that at our next meeting, but then I would say there's no pets.
well, it's in the lease. I don't think that's, no, because I don't think all pets are the same. So I think that I don't think that's an issue. The bigger issue for me is not the dog. The bigger issue for me is having to be the one to go to tell Marilyn another year from now that, by the way, we're making a change, and now this person who's given so much to the town, you said, is no, we got to pack up and go out. It's just doesn't seem to be a fair. I don't think she would want to have this place knowing she's could only be there a year. I mean, that's my opinion. And having discussions with Marilyn, she's been sitting in my office and we've had that discussion. I know she doesn't want to be here just for a year. And if we all agree that the Milltown Arts option is a better option in the long run, then we should be addressing that option now, not waiting for 10 months from now to say, oh, by the way, you got 60 days and you got to go. So
You have a hand up.
Marilyn, you have a hand up. Go ahead.
Hi. Quite honestly, I was looking for something more than a year, as I had said. And I think if I know that within a year or even 2, that I would be going out because the preference is elsewhere, then I would rather withdraw my application, quite frankly, and make it easier on you guys to pick whoever you want for the foreseeable future, because I have a ton of stuff sitting in the garage of my old house, waiting to try and move out. I was hoping June 1st. So quite honestly, I just wanted to go on record as saying, if this is only 1 or 2 years, I don't even think I'd be interested.
And Marilyn, I totally understand that. And that's why I'm torn, is because how do I go to you and say, after we've had discussions about more long-term, oh, by the way, now this better plan came into effect, and thanks, but no, thanks for staying for 10 months, but you have 60 days. So I appreciate you offering that. And I think that will come into our discussion, unless somehow between now and the end of this meeting that changes. I don't see it changing because of, you've heard our comments on Milltown Arts and what that could be for the town in the long run. I just don't think the timing's right now. I think it could be 2 years away, but depending on what happens, but I can't guarantee that, obviously. Well, thank you very much for weighing in on that.
Thanks, Marilyn. That does make
Thank you, Marilyn.
a difference.
Yeah. I also want to say that as far as my dog was concerned, I was going to get an electric fence so that she couldn't wander unless I wanted her to wander. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
So, I think, God, these are, I much prefer the selectman duties of, I'll take parking at the best, farmer's market ever over some of these really tough decisions. And, I think that we've been lucky enough that we really haven't had to make some really tough decisions, things that will bother me at the end of the meeting, but I think hearing everything, I will make a motion, and I don't know his official name, but I think I'd like to make a motion. Actually, I would like to make a motion to choose as the renter for the Gallup House, the Coast Guard Academy gentleman.
Good. I'll second that motion, especially after hearing Marilyn Mackey's comments. Discussion?
I think that I would like to have somebody reach out to him. And I don't know how many conversations we've had with him one-on-one on the phone, but I would like to find out. Brett, I'm not completely opposed. Actually, I'm not opposed. You guys know how I feel about pets in that house and on the property, but I would not be opposed to striking pets from the lease completely. I know that that's probably not, actually, I don't think that it's really outside the ballpark of what what some landlords would ask is no pets. I've certainly been in places where there've been no pets before in the lease. So that is something that I would entertain. But I'd also like to see if somebody, Bob, either you, Christine, somebody, make a phone call to him, get a little bit more information. But that would just be as an aside and additional information. I am making the motion to rent to the Coast Guard Academy, gentlemen.
Nicole, if that vote comes in favor of renting to him, I will make that call today. I'll find his file. I'm sure I can. I have spoke to him only on one occasion when he was just wanted to know about the open house and if he could send people, because he was in Michigan, he could send people to see it for him and so on. So that's as far as that went. And then he did send the application in, but I could call him back, and there's a few subjects I'd like to speak about, like not only the pet situation, but also the what happens during a farmer's market and what that means to him as far as a loss of for that particular 3 hours or whatever it is. You kind of lose any quietness in your front yard. So okay, I've got nothing else to talk about at this point.
Yeah, I would like you to reach out to him, and especially on that pet situation. And I'd like to, if he doesn't have a pet, and you discuss this with him, I would like to try to change that in our lease to not allow it, because the worst thing that I'd want to see in there is a puppy. So if someone doesn't have a pet now, and then they get a puppy or someone that isn't trained properly, that could do
totally
significant
agree.
damage to the floors and things like that, then I would like to, and you can talk to to the Hewitt committee, but since we are the ones that voted on that lease at some point last time, I would like for us to readdress that. And if he doesn't have one now, mention to him that we were thinking about taking that out of the lease, and then really take that out of the lease.
All right, so if the pet is no longer a problem, then that's fine. We could take it out of the lease. If he says he owns a Saint Bernard and decides he wants to come, or a puppy, I would have to relay the same concerns we had with Maryland. But unless we're willing to change to a 3 or 5 year lease, I think it's not going to change as far as Maryland reconsidering. So if we're thinking that it's going to be a 12-month lease with a renewal each year, depending on the two parties involved, the tenant and the landlord, then we should just move on. I'll make the call, ask those questions. And again, I didn't want to be the one knocking on Maryland's door a year from now and saying, oh, by the way,
Right.
it's not fair to her.
That's understandable. And I do want to say, for some reason, if he does back out or something comes up, then I think, like Nicole said, maybe we readdress what we have planned for that house and how it proceeds. And if we can find a way to make the expenses pay for themselves, then we do that. If this gentleman backs out or doesn't follow through, or we readdress and say, no, we don't mind someone with a 5-year lease or 3 or looking to be in there. But
Marilyn, what's the minimum number of years you'd be looking for if we were to go and change our minds on the extent of the lease?
I'm going on 86 now. I
Okay.
was hoping not to have to move again.
Okay.
So if you could answer that question for me, I'd be very grateful.
Well, I'll be honest with you, you're probably looking at least a 10+ year lease then at that point.
If I should be so lucky, 20, I don't know.
I would say so. I've never met someone like Marilyn before with so much energy.
Oh, my God.
Marilyn, how old did you say you were?
I'll be 86 in September.
I should
God
introduce you to
bless
this guy in my golf league. He's 87. He still shoots in the low 40s.
God bless you.
Well, thank you. No, seriously speaking, I would still have my house if it weren't for my husband having passed, and living on 4 acres is ridiculous. So it's, I am looking until whatever, where I can't do things for myself anymore.
Understood. And thank you.
So,
All right, so there's a motion on the floor and we'll take a vote. So the motion was by Nicole to rent to the gentleman that's part of the Coast Guard Academy. He's going to be an instructor in here for 3 years. All in favor of renting to that gentleman, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. It's 3-0. And again, it's only because of my feeling is only because of the unfairness to Marilyn, one of our wonderful townspeople that have done so much for the town, and having to say to her that when you're one and done or two and done, it just doesn't seem to be the right thing. And this Milltown Arts thing came out of nowhere over the last, it started to grow about 2 months ago, and it's really getting steam now. And I think that those who attended yesterday's farmers market just saw a glimpse of what Hewitt Farm could be. And if that's what the future holds for that piece of property, then I think that it's a disservice to Marilyn to not address that now before she gets in and gets settled, and then we address it later. So it's almost good that it caught fire now and not 2 months after Marilyn lived there, and then we had to say, oh, guess we have something else better down the road. So
my only other comment is that these things should have been discussed before it was put out for application. For the future, when things come up, that it should be more solidified. I think you moved before you were really ready to move.
Actually, Marilyn, I was ready to move. I think this whole thing with the Milton Arts thing came fast and furious over the last couple of months, and I just think that it's the way I feel about it today was not the same way I felt about it 4 weeks ago.
Understood. Well, I hope it's successful.
I hope so too. Anything else to discuss?
Nope.
Okay. Nicole, do you have anything else?
No, just a very quick comment. I was really, and don't take this the wrong way, I was really dreading our special meeting today because I was just so torn, and just want to thank Marilyn, and I want to thank the two of you just for kind of, allowing me to kind of talk it out, hearing everybody else's opinions. I think, on more than one occasion, I've been asked by people, geez, Nicole, how's it going? And I am pleasantly and very excited to tell them that it's going fantastically. So I just wanted to thank you guys, because I was really torn with this meeting and this decision. So just want to thank everybody.
Thanks, Nicole.
On that note, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would love to make a motion to adjourn so I can get to my next meeting.
So on here it says where our next meeting is on the agenda that we're supposed to say is May 24th.
May 24th. Okay.
May 4th.
And this meeting is being adjourned at 10:45. Okay, all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks for joining us, Nicole.
All right, have a good one, guys.